Imagine you're a knight. You spent your entire fortune on the finest armor money can buy, steel plates covering every inch of your body. You're basically a walking tank. You're untouchable. And then, out of nowhere, an arrow flies 200 meters across the battlefield and punches straight through you like you're made of paper. Welcome to World Timeline, and today we're talking about the weapon that made the most feared warriors in medieval Europe absolutely terrified, the English longbow. Let's go back to medieval Europe. The battlefield is ruled by knights, heavily armored, riding war horses, representing the elite of elite military power. These guys trained their whole lives to fight. Their armor cost a fortune, their reputation legendary. For centuries, if you were a knight on a horse, you were basically the medieval equivalent of a tank rolling through infantry. Regular soldiers, they'd just scatter. But then, England introduced something that completely broke that system. A wooden stick, about 6 feet long, with a string. Sounds simple, right? Don't let that fool you. The English longbow wasn't just any bow. It was typically made from a single stave of yew wood, specifically cut to use both the heartwood and sapwood together. The heartwood resists compression. The sapwood handles tension. Together, they create something almost spring-like in how it stores and releases energy. And the draw weight? We're talking 100 to 180 pounds of force to pull back. For reference, most modern recurve bows used in the Olympics around 50 pounds. The longbow was pulling double or triple that. What does this mean in practice? It means when that arrow flies, it flies. We're talking effective range of around 200 meters or close to 200 yards. That's almost 2 football fields. And at that distance, a knight in full armor who's walking slowly toward you, he's basically a slow-moving target. He can't run, he can't dodge, he just walks into it. Now, a regular arrowhead hitting plate armor would just bounce off. That's just physics. But the English archers weren't using regular arrows in heavy combat. They were using what's called the Bodkin Point, a narrow, four-sided, needle-like iron tip designed for one purpose and one purpose only: punching through metal. Think of it like this. If you try to push a blunt stick through a tin can, it won't go through. But if you take a sharp nail and apply the same force, it goes straight through. The bodkin concentrates all the energy of that 150-pound draw weight into a tiny, piercing tip. And suddenly, that expensive plate armor your knight spent his entire savings on doesn't do what it's supposed to do anymore. Historical evidence and modern ballistic tests have shown that at close to medium range, bodkin arrows could penetrate plate armor, especially weaker points like joints, visors, and thinner sections of the suit. The knight's greatest protection had become his greatest vulnerability, because that heavy armor now slowed him down, and he still couldn't fully stop the arrows. Here's where it gets really brutal. An English longbowman could fire 10 to 12 arrows a minute. Some accounts even say more. Now compare that to the crossbow, which was slower but easier to use. A crossbowman might get off 2 to 3 bolts per minute because the process of cocking and loading a crossbow takes time. The longbowman has already fired 4 or 5 shots before you even finish reloading. Now, scale that up. At the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, the English had roughly 5,000 archers lined up, each firing 10 arrows a minute. That's 50,000 arrows every 60 seconds. The sky would darken. Chronicles from the time literally describe it as a cloud blocking out the sun. French soldiers wrote about the sound, this whistling, humming wall of death coming at them from the sky. The French knights, packed tightly together in muddy terrain, charging forward in heavy armor, walked straight into that storm. It was devastating. This brings us to something that often gets overlooked: who these archers actually were. Using a longbow at full combat effectiveness isn't something you pick up in a few weeks. The draw weight alone would injure an untrained person. Modern skeletal remains of medieval English archers show deformities in their spines and shoulders. Their left arms developed differently from their right, their bones thickened and warped from decades of training. These men trained from childhood. We're talking 10, 15, 20 years of daily practice. Most of them were yeomen, commoners, farmers, hunters, foresters, men who grew up shooting for food, for sport, for survival. England actually had laws requiring men of certain classes to practice archery regularly on Sundays. So by the time these men went to war, they weren't just soldiers who happened to carry bows. They were dedicated specialists, medieval snipers who had spent their entire lives mastering one weapon. And that expertise showed on the battlefield. One more thing that made the longbow so effective: how it was used tactically. English commanders were smart.
They didn't just throw their archers into open combat, they positioned them behind defensive lines, stakes driven into the ground, natural terrain features, protected flanks. The archers would stand in safety, raining arrows from a distance, while the enemy had no choice but to slowly advance through that killing field. By the time a French knight reached the English line, if he even made it that far, he was already injured. His horse was likely dead, panicking. His formation was broken, and he was exhausted from trudging through mud in 50 pounds of armor. The longbow didn't just kill people, it broke armies before the melee even started. So what ended the longbow's dominance? Two things: gunpowder and practicality. As firearms improved through the 1500s, they required far less training than the longbow. You could take a farmer, hand him a musket, train him for a few weeks, and put him on a battlefield. Teaching him to fire a longbow to combat effectiveness would take decades. By the mid-1500s, the military advantage of the longbow had been overtaken by firearms that were cheaper to produce, easier to train, and increasingly powerful. The weapon that had humiliated French knights for over 100 years, from Crécy to Agincourt, quietly faded out of service. If you were a medieval knight, knowing the longbow existed, what would you do differently? Would you change your armor, your tactics, your whole battle strategy? Drop your answer below. Some of the responses last video were genuinely fascinating, and I read every single one. If you're into military history and want more deep dives like this, hit subscribe. We cover everything from ancient warfare to the weapons that changed the world. This has been World Timeline. I'll see you in the next one.